Welcome to our class on photographing an eclipse. Okay, yeah, so March 13th and 14th of 2025, next year, that's going to be the first total lunar eclipse that we're doing. And then September 7th and 8th is going to be the second total lunar eclipse. That also happens to be my birthday. I don't know what it says about me that I get a blood red moon for my birthday, but I'm going with it. I like it. You know, most people get gift cards. I get a blood red moon. Then the next total solar eclipse for the continental U.S., all of the U.S., is going to be August 12th, 2045. Now, in 2044, there is going to be a total solar eclipse, but it's only going to be Montana and the Dakotas. Now, granted, there's plenty of space up there to go hang out and see an eclipse, but it's a little far to travel. But if you want to go to Montana and see a total eclipse, 2044 is here. So what exactly are we talking about when we're talking about an eclipse? So we're talking about the solar eclipse, which is when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, and it completely blocks the sun disk. Totally. That is a total solar eclipse, and there's a specific reason why I'm saying that. The lunar eclipse is when the Earth moves between the moon and the sun, and the Earth's shadow goes over the moon. This usually happens when there's full moon. My computer is like way over there, so I keep listening. There we go. All right, a partial eclipse is when only part of the sun or the moon is covered. A penumbral lunar eclipse, which is what is happening tomorrow night, is when the moon passes through the outer edges of the Earth's shadow. Now, here's why I say that the one tomorrow night is a bad thing. Because how many of you use Photoshop? Do you use Photoshop? Okay, when they talk about feathering in Photoshop, you know where you have it, it's completely solid and it fades into nothing. Okay, the fade into nothing part of the shadow, that's what the moon is going to pass through tomorrow night. The fade into nothing. And so what's going to happen? You're going to have a penumbral eclipse. The moon is going to be much darker, just barely darker. Probably not even going to, I mean, we shot a penumbral eclipse once and I was shooting with John Balls, and he's like, is this thing ever going to happen? It's not even happening. I was like, nope, it's happening. You can even tell. So, and unfortunately with this one, this is going to be very outer edges of the shadow. And so there's barely going to be a change. So if you want to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to see it at peak, go for it. I'm going to be there. So an annular solar eclipse, you guys might have heard about this. This happened last October in the southwest. That is when the moon doesn't completely cover the disk of the sun because the moon is at a further orbit. And so it doesn't completely cover the sun disk, and so you get what's called the ring of fire, which is that orange ring around the black disk. Very, very cool look. But it's not a total eclipse like what we're getting. Okay. So let's talk about why you need protective gear. We've all heard about this. You gotta have your glasses, make sure you have glasses on, make sure you have this, make sure you have that. Why do you need it? Well, you don't need it for solar eclipse. You can look at a lunar eclipse all day long without glasses, but you need it for solar. So as the moon is moving over the sun, okay, so you've got the visible spectrum, which is your white light that you can see. What you can't see is the UV rays and the IR rays. Those rays get concentrated as the moon is moving over the sun, and those rays that can burn your eyes out within 60 to 100 seconds. That's a minute to a minute and a half, and you're blind. That's all it's going to take. That will also do the same thing with your sensors on your camera, if even that long. I have a friend who I will not name, although some people in the room are going to go under the business. But I will not name because she said, don't use my name. She rented a camera from Bedford when we went to shot the eclipse in Missouri. She did get the insurance on it, which was very small. We didn't have the filters back then, so we made our filters. And they worked great, except just about close to totality. She had a filter on it. She didn't have it on very secure, and a gust of wind came along, blew the filter off. Hit the ground. She picked it up, put it back on. Maybe 30 seconds off of that camera, with that, but the camera was taking the picture at the time. That 30 seconds is long enough to burn a hole in the sensor. Every picture after that, she had a black spot on the picture. She's like, I guess it got dirty. Because we were on a dirt road. This is the Balks Road. We were on a dirt road. She went back to Bedford. They looked at it and they said, there's a hole in the sensor. It had burned a hole in about 30 seconds. So that's why I say these rays, they can burn a hole in your eyes. And they can burn a hole in your sensors. So think of it like you think, remember when you were a kid, you used magnifying glass, put it out there with the sun's rays, you burn a hole in the paper, burn a hole in the leaves, burn a hole in, well, we won't talk about what else you burned. We'll just keep that in the past. I know there's some of them out there going, oh, there's some ants that didn't make it. Yeah, I know how it goes. That's kind of the same concept. That's why rays are getting more concentrated and more flooded and burning. Which if you steer long enough sun, just as it is, you can burn your retinas out, but you can do it a lot faster than eclipse. Plus the fact that most people are looking at the sun during eclipse. So your retinas do not have pain receptors. Now, if somebody pokes you in the eyeball, it's going to hurt because you got nerves around your eyeballs. But the retinas themselves in the back of your eyeballs do not have pain receptors. So if you burn them out, you have no idea you burned them out until all of a sudden everything goes blurry. You can't see anything, or you've got a black spot in your eyesight. And once that happens, that's it. Retinas do not regenerate. So you must wear your protective eye gear during the solar eclipse, except for one part. And we're going to talk about that too. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about this protective eyewear. This is very, very, very important. I remember with the Missouri one, we had a big problem with counterfeit glasses. People got hurt from this. When you're looking for these glasses, there's something that says ISO or ISO 12312-2. Some of them might say ISO 12312-2:2015. That's going to be, like, for example, here, it's right here. It's either going to be here or it's going to be on the ends here. You want that ISO symbol. So why are you looking for the ISO symbol? Because that shows that these glasses meet the international safety standards. Something else to look for, the silver on the outside. Now I've seen that some that don't have silver on the outside that say they're ISO rated. I don't know if I trust them or not because silver is a coating that's supposed to protect you from the sun. But you definitely want to look for the ISO and the CE rating. They'll say CE as well, which is another standard. But you absolutely want to look for that ISO 12312-2. Okay, so the film on these glasses, if I put this on, I can't see you at all. You shouldn't be able to see anything through these unless you look at the sun, and then you can see the sun. Otherwise, if you can see through these, if you're standing in a room, if you have these windows open and you can see through the window, these are not properly rated. So these need to be nearly black. Okay. So let's talk about shooting a solar eclipse. Anybody going to be shooting a solar eclipse anytime soon? I thought so. So let's talk about the equipment you will need. Obviously, you'll need a camera. You'll need one of these. You don't specifically need this absolutely, but this is a big help. I know people are going to say, where's my iPhone? You can take pictures with your iPhone, but they won't share it. Long lenses. I would say at the very least, you're going to need a 200 millimeter. The 200 millimeter, and it's still going to be pretty far away. Because this eclipse is going to be almost straight overhead. because it's going to peak at about 1:12 p.m. So it's going to be almost straight overhead, so it's going to be tight. So at the very least, you want the 200 millimeter. This is a 600 millimeter. That's a 600. This is a big boy. This is a good one. This is the one I shot with last time. But even then, and I don't have it with me because I just realized I forgot it. I had a teleconverter on this, and I'm going to talk about teleconverter. But this is 600 millimeters. Normally, I can get nose hairs have been elked from 300 yards with that thing, but the sun is a little bit. Okay, you're going to need a tripod because when it's going into the total eclipse, it's getting darker and darker. You're going to have a longer shutter speed, and so in order to maintain the sharpness of your images, you're going to want that camera to stay perfectly still. You're going to need a tripod. Plus the fact that, in case you didn't know, these are a little bit heavy. You don't want to sit there and try to, like this, trying to get the sun. You want a good, sturdy tripod for a big lens like this. And of course, I'm sure you all know you mount the lens, not the camera. You have a lens this big. So if you're renting a lens, if y'all are going to go rent a 500 millimeter or 800 millimeter or whatever, make sure you mount the lens, not the camera on the tripod. Okay, this is optional, but I strongly recommend that you have a remote control for your camera. The latest DSLRs, and all of them mirrorless as far as I know, unless they're weird. They have a remote option. Usually they have an app that you can put on your phone, and you can use your phone as a remote control. If not, I know with the DSLRs, there is an option where you can purchase a remote control. I highly recommend having a remote because what's going to happen is you're going to set your camera, you're going to set your lens pretty much to infinity. You're going to do this all manual. You're going to leave it there, and you're not going to want to touch that so you can keep that sharpness. And a remote control is going to allow you to just sit back and, I'm just going to be, just going to sit down, looking up the thing, taking pictures like this. So I do recommend a remote if you got it. And then a teleconverter. The teleconverter is basically a magnifying glass for a camera lens. They're about this big. This isn't a teleconverter. This isn't an active for the camera, but it's about the same size as a teleconverter. Looks kind of like this. And you put it on, and then you put the lens on. What it does is whatever the teleconverter is, it magnifies it by that. Like I have a 1.4 teleconverter. I put it on that lens, and I went from 600 to 840. Now, it doesn't say 840, it says 800 millimeters. It doesn't know 840. But it magnified it to 800 millimeters. So it brought it a little bit closer. If you've got a teleconverter, use it. If you don't, no big deal. The thing with the teleconverters, most teleconverters, they don't have a motor in them. So when you put that on, there's a motor in your camera and a motor in your lens that allows you to autofocus. The teleconverter is a roadblock. It will stop that communication. Your lens is going to become all manual. That's not a bad thing because you're going to be all manual on it anyway. You're going to want to set it to infinity and then turn it to manual so it doesn't try to autofocus because it's going to be getting dark. You're going to be shooting through a dark filter and it's going to try to autofocus. It's not going to have a first blue and it's just going to go bonkers. So you want to set it to manual anyway, and you want that autofocus off and you want it to infinity. So if you have a teleconverter, no big deal. Okay? There we go. So let's talk about some of the protective equipment you will need. Standard filter. When I say standard filter, I mean these kind, like this, that you screw onto the end of the camera. You can get these camera shops. Bedford, I don't know if Bedford has these in particular right now. I got this one off of Amazon. I paid $69 for it, but that was about 8 months ago. I think it's about 120 now.
Well, the price, I just was there this morning, and you can get my 82 and my 77 for $50, and they're still.
Yeah, the smaller ones are cheaper. This is a 95. This is for this bad boy right here. He's big. This is a Sigma 150 to 600 millimeter, and it takes a 95 millimeter lens. So yeah, this is the size of it. But you notice it's black. Again, you should not be able to see through this. Even holding it up to the window or holding it up to wherever, you should not be able to see through this. If you can see through it, it's not rated right. It's not rated right for your camera. There are different standards on there, what to look for. This one is okay, y'all heard of ND filters, neutral density filters, D2 and D4, graduated ND. Okay, this is an ND 100,000. This is pretty dark. What this does, where ND2 or ND4 will be a stop or 2 stops or 4 stops or whatever for your camera, this is 16.6 stops. There is also one that's even bigger than this. KWA said that they bought these, which is 18 stops. That one's going to be really dark. So you want at least 16 stops for your camera. Anything less than that, you run the risk of damaging your camera. So there's that. So what happens if you don't have those lenses? You can make a homemade filter. They sell filter paper like this. And again, it's got the silver on the outside, that's what you put on the outside, the black on the other side, and again, you should not be able to see through it. It should be completely dark. You can buy this. Make sure that it's not damaged in any way, you don't want any pinholes or anything. But what you can do, get you some cardboard, trace around, and then you can take that cardboard, make a circle, put this over it, make sure that this completely covers that circle, and then you'll be able to slide that homemade lens on the camera. If you want to make a homemade lens, just be careful that there are no holes in this. And when you put it on there, there's no holes anywhere. This I got off of Amazon. Ted actually has some that he can sell today. He's got a few sheets that he can sell. But this is a 6x6 I bought off Amazon.
You can also rubber band up the side of the lens.
You can, but if that rubber band moves, it's trouble. That's why I recommend the cardboard, because number one, you can slide it on better, and number two, you can tape it on too.
One little comment about that technique. If you happen to have a long lens that has an insert with filter, like a 300,
Right.
you can't use that inside because it will blow all the light all over your lens and scatter all over the place. You get one.
Right.
Tried it. And that doesn't work at all.
Okay. The other thing too is there are places that are selling the homemade filters that are pre-made. Bedford's has them for $19, and they go up to, I believe, 85 millimeter. So it wouldn't fit this lens, but it would fit this one. So they do have those. I think they're out of stock in Fayetteville right now, but they said they got one in there. Okay, so filter for your phone lenses. How many of you have, hang on, I'm going to take my iPhone out to take pictures too. How many of you have a filter for your iPhone? No. Okay. Need one of these. Because sometimes the glasses will work and sometimes they won't. Like these glasses would not work. Because mine, see how big that is? See how small that is? If it's not completely covering it, you run the risk of burning out your iPhone. And these will burn out just as easily as your camera will. I am going to watch the sales for iPhone for April. I guarantee you they're going to stop. Because people are going to be like, ooh, wait, why is my camera not working? You got to have $1,000 more stops, whole bunch of them Tuesday morning. Or actually Monday afternoon. But you do need a filter. You can get filters like this. This is for Bedford. This is $10.99 at Bedford's. They sell them online too. I think Walmart is selling them. There's several places that are selling them. I've got a list. And we'll talk about that. You need your protective eyewear. You need your glasses. So you can look like those cool people in the 50s that were watching the 3D movies. Also, it's fun to stick pictures of people on the crazy walls.
So the filter for the phone, does it need to have those same ISO settings?
It needs to have, yeah, you should have ratings on the back here that should tell you. This one has got a little QR code that explains it. But yeah, it does need to have the proper settings. Or ratings, rather. Now, some of these glasses that have the big wide squares on them, you might be able to use for your phone. I've seen back and forth. I've seen some people say yes, it's safe for the phone, and I've seen some people say no, it's not. You need the actual phone. As far as I know, this is the same as this. You can get one of these and make a filter for your phone. Take this and tape it on the back. Or you can just go buy it because then you don't have to make it yourself.
Put that Mylar or whatever that is. Does that work if you put it inside your phone case, between the phone and the case?
You have to make sure it doesn't slip or move, because if you let in any light, it's going to burn your camera. And the thing is, with these sensors on these phones, the sensors are this big. So it will take nothing to burn that. So if you're going to do that, you need to tape it down and make sure it stays put.
In regards to your comment, I noticed this phone has 3 lenses on it. Don't know which one you're taking it, so I was assuming you're going to cover all
But
3.
you want to cover all three, because one of them is your zoom, one of them is your wide, and one of them is your regular lens. You're probably going to want your zoom. Now, if you're going to zoom in, if you're going to digital zoom, I'm going to tell you it's going to look like crap. Just one. You can digitally zoom in, but it's not going to look great. iPhone pictures are not going to look great. iPhone would be better to capture kind of the context of the situation. You know, get pictures of people during totality when you don't have to have the filter. Get pictures of people looking at the eclipse. I mean, that would be a cool shot, right? So things like that. So. All right, so let's talk camera settings. Let's talk camera settings. All right, this is going to be for DSLR mirrorless cameras. This is the mirrorless. I'm sure you guys have the DSLR or mirrorless. I'm actually not going to be shooting with this. I'm going to use my DSLR because that one's still being paid for, and I do not want anything to happen to it. So we're gonna use the camera that was paid for. That actually is the same one I shot with in 2015, and it did a fantastic job. So why mess with a good thing? All right. Your settings are going to change throughout the eclipse. It's going to start out bright. It's going to get really, really dark. Then you get to take the filters off. Then you got to put the filters back on. It's going to be really, really dark again. And then it's going to slowly get bright. So your settings are going to change. These are suggested settings. Take these settings, start with this, if that doesn't work, go up or down. That's my best suggestion. Because also, it's kind of going to depend on the lens that you're using. It's going to depend on the camera you're using as to what your settings are going to be. This will give you a general idea. So high ISO shooting through the filter. Because the filter is black. Your camera is going to be like, what? So you're going to want your ISO to be a little high. That's okay though. Most cameras can handle it. Especially nowadays, I mean, if your camera is 2 or 3 years old, it can handle higher ISO. If your camera's 5 or 6 years old, it's okay with a higher ISO. Now, if your camera is 20 years old, it's probably going to go what? But the newer cameras can usually handle an ISO of 3000. I actually decreased the ISO to 1250 when it reached totality, when I took the filter off. That's when you actually can drop the ISO down. And then when you put the filter back on, it has to go back up, because again, you're shooting through blackness. Aperture F9, F11, that's really not gonna change. That's pretty much just good, that's a good middle number, because you don't want to let in too much light, say. But you also don't want to let in too little light, because again, you're shooting through a black filter. So you want to let in as much light as possible, but you also want that good depth of field, because you're going to be shooting at infinity. So F9 to F11, I think I shot F9. Yeah, I think I pretty much kept it on F9 the whole time. All right, shutter speed. At totality, 1/328th of a second, because I had taken the filter off. Much slower before that though, more like 1/25th of a second when I had the filter on. These settings right here, that's at totality. That was my settings. The picture that you saw at the very beginning of the slideshow of the total eclipse, that was my settings for that picture. So that's at totality when you've got that filter off. It's going to be much slower when you've got the filter on.
You must have to look at you.
Go ahead. Everybody else is doing it. Everybody behind me. Yeah. Again, all of these are adjustable. You will be adjusting throughout the eclipse because the light's going to change. So these are all going to be adjustable. And it's okay to adjust.
So, right, I'm just thinking, you're out there photographing. You're nervous about the whole thing. When you take that filter off, you know it's at totality because it's.
I'm going to explain.
Okay.
We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. Okay. In fact, I'm going to explain it right now. You can remove your filter and eyewear during totality only. You must replace both before totality ends so that you don't damage your eyes with the camera. Now, totality is going to be different depending on where you are. If you are in Alma. If you're in Alma, it's going to be about 2 minutes in something. If you're in Russellville, it's going to be 4 minutes in something. So the times are going to vary. The closer you are to that line of totality, the longer the totality is going to be. So you need to figure out how long totality is going to be for whatever location you're in. Timeandmate.com is a fantastic resource for this because you can go to this. There's actually a tab they have that says Eclipse on it. Click on that tab, go to the April 8th eclipse. There's a bar, there's a search bar that says enter location. Type in the location where you're going to be. It will tell you when this eclipse is going to start, when totality is going to hit, how long totality is going to be, and when the eclipse is going to end. It's going to give you exact times for that location. I mean, like down to the minute. Yes.
Okay, there is an app called Solar Eclipse Timer, $1.99.
Did it?
It works for me.
Yes, it does. There's also. You people are just getting ahead of me.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, timeandmate.com works. There's that app. There's actually several apps that are out there. I've got one called Solara, I think, that does the same thing, and I think it's actually free. But it will check times for you. And then it's a great app to have because it will also give you normal sunrise and sunset times. So if you like to shoot the sunrise and the sunset, it's a great app. So there's several apps that are going to be checking the eclipse. And then timeandmate.com is also a great resource. NASA is also a great resource. They've got all kinds of stuff in NASA.com or NASA.gov. Sorry. But yes, there are apps out there. There are websites out there. You can check. Just make sure you know. And what you can do is, as soon as it hits totality, you can take that filter off, take pictures to your heart's content. Yeah, because you'll move it up to 1/328th of a second and get your filter away. And then as soon as it's starting, as soon as you start to see that glimmer of light, put that filter back on. And you want to do that for two reasons. Number one, you don't want to burn your camera. But number two, you're gonna get what's called the diamond ring, which is this burst of light that comes out, and this circle of burst of light, and then there's a ring. And it's called the diamond ring or the engagement ring. And it's a really cool picture to get. I've got it in here. Y'all seen it. So where do you find filters and glass? Background camera and video, again, there's selling glass, they're selling glass. They're selling these filters. They're selling the homemade filters that go on the cameras. Walmart.com and Amazon.com have them, but you need to check the shipping dates at this point. Because some of them are saying, we'll ship, you'll get it by April 6th. And it's like, that's kind of close.
$1,000 optical has a lot of the.
Yeah.
What was that?
So Lowe's and Home Depot have the glasses, and I believe they also have these filters. They're selling these as well. Public libraries have the glasses for free. Parks has the glasses and the filters, the iPhone filters. Also, and I don't know why I took it out of here, but I took it out of here. As I was saying, he was pointing out the optical places, and check your local businesses. There are actually several local small businesses that are selling the glasses. So you can find them at a variety of places right now.
Explore Scientific.
Springdale's Explore Scientific also has them. All the major public libraries have them, and they're free. Again, if you're ordering them, watch the delivery date. Because at this point, you're going to cut it close. Okay. Let's talk about shooting a lunar eclipse. We've been talking so much about solar eclipses, but we have some really great lunar eclipses that are going to come in. Early next year. The one tomorrow night is going to come. So what are the differences? You don't need protective eyewear. You're shooting the moon at night. You're not going to burn your retinas out looking at the moon. You don't need protective filters either. You're not going to burn your camera out looking at the moon. You still need a tripod, a long lens, and a camera. You will need those, especially the tripod. You're definitely going to need the tripod since you're shooting at night. You really want to do so. Again, highly recommend a remote because of your slower shooting speeds. Put it on manual and use that remote control. Camera settings for lunar eclipse. This was when I had a total lunar eclipse and you got this blood red moon. That was my camera settings. F6.3. You're going to have your f-stop is going to be low. It's going to be f6.3, f5.6, f7.1. The moon does not produce as much light as the sun. Imagine that. So you're going to want to open that aperture a little bit. So your f-stop is going to be lower than with the solar eclipse. Again, the settings will vary widely throughout the eclipse because it's going from a really bright moon to a really dark moon. But at least you don't have to shoot through a black filter. Start about f6.3. I started about 1/400th of a second, and the ISO is low, 100 to 250. Why is that? Because the full moon is really friggin' bright. So you don't need super high ISO to start. How many of y'all shot the moon and all you get is a white blob? Yeah, that's because your camera is metering for the whole scene. You got to tell it to meter just for the moon. You meter for the moon, you'll get the moon. You meter for the whole scene, you get a white blob on a sea of black. So f6.3, 1/400. Again, these are going to change depending on the camera. At peak, the settings are going to be more like ISO 8000, 1/25th of a second. That's what my settings were for the nice blood red total lunar eclipse moon. So maintain sharpness at a slow shutter speed, remote tripod, again, strongly recommend. If you have a DSLR camera, I would recommend you set your remote to mirror up. What that will do is it'll flip that mirror up, and then you need to wait about 5 or 6 seconds, because when that mirror flips up, it vibrates the camera. So if you wait 5 or 6 seconds, the vibration stops, then you take your picture. and it'll close the shutter. And when you take your picture, it will be perfectly sharp.
You say that one more time, so.
So if you have a mirror, if you have a regular DSLR camera, not a mirrorless doesn't have a mirror, so it's not regular DSLR camera, the remote control, there should be an option that says M up or mirror up. What that's going to do, you've got the mirror in front of your sensor. What that does is it flips that mirror up and holds it there. As that mirror flips, it vibrates the camera. So it flips up, vibrates the camera. 5 or 6 seconds, the camera will stop vibrating. Then you hit the button again, and it will take the picture and close the mirror, close the shutter. And what that does is that gives you a sharper image.
You have to do that for every image you shoot? Or
If you're shooting the lunar eclipse, yeah. Or if you're, I mean, if you want super sharpness on stuff, yeah, because every time that mirror moves up, it's going to vibrate the camera. You can lock it up. Some of them will allow you to lock it up. That's usually the cleaning sensor. That's what the mirror lockup is for. Now on a mirrorless camera, there's no mirror, so you don't have to worry about it. I just got my brand new mirrorless camera, and I'm like, where's my mirror up option? Where's my mirror up option? It took me a good 5 minutes to figure out there's no mirror up option. Oh, mirror left. Not always as bright as I could. Let's talk about composition for Eclipse Photography. This one I told them this was actually a partial lunar eclipse of a supermoon. We shot this from Mount Sequoia. And of course, you can see us looking over the city of Fayetteville. There's a little lane right there. I mean, that was a gorgeous shot. And let me tell you, it was about 24 degrees, about froze our butts off from these pictures. And then we're all standing out there. I had just been named publicity chairman for PSCWA. And we're all standing out there, and KNWA shows up. And we're all out there taking pictures, and I'm like freezing. They said, we want to interview somebody for this. And everybody looks at me, and I'm like, what? You're the publicity chairman, go talk to them. So here I am on KNWA. Yes, this is really a lot of fun. Today, I'm not even sure what I said. I'm so bloody cold. Okay. So it's going to be difficult and possible to get a good foreground image with the eclipse coming up. Because again, it's going to be almost dead overhead. It's peaking at 1:12, I think, p.m. It's going to be almost dead overhead. So unless you have a super wide fisheye lens that you're going to use, you're not going to get great foreground. So just aim for the eclipse. Get some nice close-ups, that sort of thing. Sometimes lunar eclipses are a little bit lower, so it's easier to get those. If you are going to get composition photos, wide-angle lens for good composition. This is, I think it was my ultra wide. It was a super moon, so I was actually able to get the moon in there. Plus, the moon was actually setting at the time. So I used an ultra wide lens for this. So wide-angle lens will give you good composition because you'll be able to get the time in the foreground, and you'll be able to get the eclipse as well. Again, the eclipse will probably be very small if you're taking composition photos, but you know, you'll at least have context of what's going on. You'll be able to see people gawking at the eclipse or taking pictures of the eclipse or whatever. So here's a few suggestions if you do want to do composition photos. These work great with lunar eclipses because, again, those tend to be a little bit lower in the sky most of the time than the solar ones. But I did actually shoot partial solar eclipse at sunset once. And I was really stupid. I didn't even use a filter on my camera. I hadn't burned my camera out, other than the fact that it was incredibly hazy that day. And I think that was my only saving grace. You don't even know. So get people in the foreground doing the eclipse. You're going to have a bunch of people in funky 1950s 3D glasses looking up. You know, that's a great shot to get. Consider shooting over 3 buildings. How many of y'all seen the pictures? You know, you got the lunar eclipse or solar eclipse sitting on top of the Empire State Building, or sitting in between two skyscrapers. You know, do something like that where you've got some kind of tall structure that you can put the eclipse next to. And a lot of times you do that, you know, if you get the right depth of field, you can actually make it huge. Consider shooting over water. We did this one time to capture reflection of the eclipse. Again, this is really good for lunar. We got, now this wasn't an eclipse. The last supermoon, we had a supermoon not too long ago that we shot out at Lake Fayetteville, and it came up and it was, I mean, like screaming red when it first came up. And it came up and it got orange as it was coming up, and we shot it over Lake Fayetteville. And so I've got this trail of orange through the water. Gorgeous, really cool pictures of the water. Or shoot through and around trees. You know, I've got the trees here for a little bit of context here. So that was actually a co-lunar eclipse right there. Shoot around trees or shoot through trees. This is kind of a fun thing to do with solar eclipses. With the solar eclipse, as the eclipse is happening, it's going to filter through the trees, and you're going to see all these little crescent shapes. It's actually going to, the trees will act like a pinhole camera, and it's going to show you the shape of the eclipse. So that's a fun thing, you know, when you're out there shooting the eclipse, you want to use your iPhone, take your iPhone, look down on the ground and get some of the shadows. It's going to look really